Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Learn with Sir Glenn, and for this video, we're going to discuss distance formula. So, let's go! The distance formula is an algebraic expression that gives the distance between any two points in Cartesian coordinate plane using the coordinates of the points. And the distance formula is an application of Pythagorean theorem in finding the distance between two points. Okay, so let's derive the distance formula. To derive the distance formula, we will use Pythagorean theorem to get the distance between two general points in Cartesian coordinate plane. So let's have a portion of Cartesian coordinate plane. And on this portion of Cartesian coordinate plane, let's have a general point with coordinates x sub 1, y sub 1, and another general point with coordinate x sub 2, y sub 2. So since these points are general points, you can place it anywhere on your Cartesian plane, and you can also use this one to represent any points on your Cartesian plane. So what we're going to do is to just simply look for the distance between these two points. So looking at the distance, on my previous video, we discussed that if you're looking for the distance between two points on your Cartesian plane, you can use the Pythagorean theorem, which is c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So all we have to do now is to form a right triangle. And to do that, we're just going to add more lines on our figure. And you can also get the coordinates of the third point, which will give you x sub 2, y sub 1. Since it is horizontally aligned with x sub 1, y sub 1, it will have the same y coordinates. And since it is vertically aligned on x sub 2, y sub 2, it will have the same x coordinate as with x sub 2, y sub 2. So now, to use the Pythagorean theorem, we have to find the measure of the legs so that we can have the measure of our hypotenuse, which is our c. And for this one, the distance between x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So let's have first our leg A. If you want to find leg A, you will be looking for our horizontal distance. And on our previous video, if you're looking for the horizontal distance, we're going to use absolute value of x sub 1 minus x sub 2. Then after this, we're going to have the other leg, which is B. If we're going to look at the B, this is actually a vertical distance. And on our previous video, the vertical distance is actually equal to absolute value of y sub 1 minus y sub 2. So after this, we're going to use these values of A and B to replace the A and B on our Pythagorean theorem. So that will give us c squared is equal to absolute value of x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared, which is the value of A on our figure, plus absolute value of y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared, which is the value of our B on our figure. Simplifying this one further, we have to take the square root of both sides to remove the square on the left side of our equation. So you can actually remove now the absolute value, since the purpose of the absolute value on our distance is to have a positive distance. And we already have your square on your x sub 1 minus x sub 2 and y sub 1 minus y sub 2, and that will give you also a positive answer. So removing the absolute value, we can now replace it with parentheses. So therefore, our equation will become c is equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. Then all you have to do now is to replace c with letter d, which stands for the distance. So therefore, our distance formula is equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. So this distance formula can be used to find the distance between any two points on your Cartesian plane. So how to use the distance formula? So find the distance between point A with coordinates 5, 2 and point B with coordinates 2, 6. So we don't have to plot the points on Cartesian coordinate plane. All you have to do is to follow the following steps. So step 1 is to have the formula, which is this equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. Then step 2 is we're going to assign. So we're going to assign the given points as x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. Step 3 is to substitute. So we're going to substitute the assigned values of x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, and y sub 2 on our equation. Then solve. So we're going to perform the operation using order of operations. Then step 5 is to have your final answer. Okay, so now let's try those steps to find the distance between point A with coordinates 5, 2 and point B with coordinates 2, 6. So again, step 1, we write the formula, which is this equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. Then after this, we're going to assign your x sub 1 and y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So the first point will be x sub 1, y sub 1, while the second point will become x sub 2, y sub 2. Then after this, we're going to substitute. So we're going to replace the x sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 1, y sub 2 with the values that we assigned on the second step. So therefore, we will have this equal to square root of 5 minus 2, replacing x sub 1 with 5 and x sub 2 with 2 squared, plus quantity 2 minus 6 squared, replacing y sub 1 with 2 and y sub 2 with 6. So after this, we're going to solve using the order of operation. So we work on the parentheses first. So we will have this equal to square root of 3 squared plus negative 4 squared. Applying the exponent, we will have this equal to square root of 9 plus 16. Adding this number will give you this equal to square root of 25. Applying the square root will give you this equal to 5. So therefore, the distance between A and B is equal to 5 units. Okay, so let's have another example. Find the distance between point M with coordinates 1, 3 and point N with coordinates 6, 15. So step 1 is to write your distance formula, which is this equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. Then step 2 is to assign the points. So let's have the first point as x sub 1, y sub 1 and the second point as x sub 2, y sub 2. But you can actually interchange the assignment of your points and that will give you the same answer. So after this, we're going to substitute the assigned values to our formula and that will give us this equal to square root of 1 minus 6 squared, replacing x sub 1 with 1 and replacing x sub 2 with 6, plus quantity 3 minus 15 squared, replacing y sub 1 with 3 and y sub 2 with 15. Then all you have to do is to solve. Using the order of operation, we will have this equal to square root of negative 5 squared plus negative 12 squared. Then applying the exponent, that will give you this equal to square root of 25 plus 144. Then that will give you square root of 169, which is equal to 13. So therefore, the distance between M and N is 13 units. So let's have the last example. So find the distance between point M with coordinates negative 2, 0 and point N with coordinates negative 3, 5. So step 1, write the formula. This equal to square root of quantity x sub 1 minus x sub 2 squared plus quantity y sub 1 minus y sub 2 squared. Step 2, you're going to assign x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So let's have the first point as x sub 1, y sub 1. Second point x sub 2 and y sub 2. But you can actually interchange the points. You will have the same answer. Step 3 is substitute. So we're going to replace the x sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 1 and y sub 2 with the values that we assigned on our second step. So we'll have this equal to square root of negative 2 minus negative 3 squared plus 0 minus 5 squared. Then we will now solve for this using order of operations. So we will have this equal to square root of 1 squared plus negative 5 squared, and that will give us this equal to square root of 1 plus 25, which will give you square root of 26. So since 26 is not a perfect square and you cannot have factors which is perfect square aside from 1, you will have square root of 26 as your distance. So the distance between M and N is square root of 26 units. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching and hope you have learned something from this video.